Welcome to Stampscaping 101. We're going to be trimming two Scenic Sentiment sets, number 6 and number 7. I'm doing this for a customer that doesn't, hasn't done a lot of trimming of their own rubber stamps before, and they have ordered a lot of sets here. So I always offer, if someone that orders a bunch of sets and I don't know, they ask, I certainly help them out with the trimming, okay, if I have time. And this is how I go about doing it, okay? I haven't trimmed Scenic Sentiment sets before, but what I do, with most of my sets, be it Scenic Sentiment or the nature sheets, I usually go around on the perimeter first, okay? Not all the time. I mean, it just depends on the layout of the stamps, and the layout of the stamps is always kind of dependent on the designs that are included. I try to lay things out in the most, I don't know, kind of a logical way for ease of trimming in mind, okay? I did a lot of trimming of rubber when I was at Stamp of the Hand. That's a company that I worked for before I started Stampscapes, and we did a lot of trimming, and a lot of the plates were kind of designed just for maximum imagery, okay? Which makes sense because plates are expensive, and the cost to print up a sheet of rubber doesn't depend on the number of designs on the plate. It just depends on the dimension of it, okay? So, that's understood, but if there is just like an eighth of an inch of space in between the imagery, it's going to take you so much longer to trim the images. So, I do it for space and kind of trimming economy, you might say. Time to that's going to take someone to trim. Okay, now going to these Scenic Sentiment sets, number 6 and 7 are the ones that have the most words on them. There's a lot of words on these sheets here. That's one of the reasons why I don't offer these quote or word stamps individually. If I offered these individually and I had to make up plates for, I don't know, several of these designs, or just like a handful of them on one plate, it would just cost so much more. So if you were to buy, I don't know, half of these word stamps right here, it would individually, it would cost you as much as this entire set. So it's just so much more of a deal for the customer. Now, if there's only one stamp they want, that's not good. But, if you want a handful of these, I don't know what it is. It might even be a third of them. You're getting a huge percentage of them at, basically, it's not free, but it almost is. So, okay, so what I'm doing right here is I try to go for the longest continuous cuts as I can, okay? So I'm not just taking time to cut out each individual stamp one at a time, okay? I'm going for these kind of economical cuts, in a direct line as much as possible. And then I go back in. I do the fine trimming, okay? So, that being said, when you start cutting some of these out, make sure that you're cutting the designs together. So this one's Planet Earth, unless you just want those separately, but that's, I see that as one stamp there. So just be mindful of it as you're trimming these out. I mean, most of these are pretty, obvious in terms of the placement of the wording, that they might be a two stamp or a two word stamp as opposed to, two separate ones. But that, again, I've left enough space in between the stamps where that's fairly obvious. All right, now with the scenic sentiment sheets too, like a set like this one, I mean, a lot of people they use unmounted stamps and that's it. Okay, but if you're someone that uses, I don't know, clear stamps or whatever, this might be the type of set that you consider in cling foam because they are already trimmed. Now, I'll trim these for you, but they're pretty convenient just to have in, your trimmed, mounted, ready to go forms in the cling foam versions. And the price that we charge for cling foam sets, it's basically the cost of the cling foam itself. If you were to buy a piece of cling foam, so it's almost like the trimming is, a very nominal charge, if anything. Alright, so when you get around these descenders and ascenders on your wording, just be careful not to trim any of those off, okay? These are the descenders of a word, and these are the ascenders, okay? Just watch out for those. Alright. But this goes pretty fast. When you first start getting into a sheet, it might seem like, oh my gosh, this is going to, this is a lot of stamps right here. It might take a while, but once you start trimming off kind of the edges and, going for those longer cuts, then just doing these fine-tune trims are easy to do. Okay? So see this right here? So you can, if you don't want to have to deal with it kind of being all floppy and everything like that, then you just divide it up like that, look for your straight cuts, and then go to your curved ones. See, like this, what I'm doing right here, I mean, it's a bunch of little kind of ins and outs, but I consider it kind of like one, I don't know, one continuous cut almost. And when I'm doing these real kind of curvy ones, I keep the trimming right down, and it's probably a little bit of it's probably like a 1/4 inch of the blade that I'm doing it with, because I can get the most amount of rotation right at that pivot area, right in the closest to the whatever connection point. Okay. And then when you're always doing this type of work, coming in and out like this, you let your offhand do the walking, okay? Do the most of the work. All right, so this is a lot of stamps right here, and we're almost done. I'm not going to put these back in order on this set right here. I'll let them do that. But they won't have to trim. This one is "My Spirit is in the Mountains." When you're doing these scenic sentiment quotes, you can do a scene and then kind of fit a quote around what you've just stamped, or you could also be inspired by the quote itself and see if it conjures up something. Follow your dreams, my spirit is in the mountains, the sound of silence, my head's in the clouds. Those types of things like that. I mean, just reading those quotes like that, those can be very inspirational. And it could conjure up, some, I don't know, some different types of compositions in your head. I mean, it does for me. I need to work reverse more often. I need to do something around the quote, I think. Because every time I read one of those quotes, something, Maybe not something specific, but at least the gist of the type of a scene comes to mind. Like I just did, my head's in the clouds or something like that. You know, doing something on maybe a photo stamping could be good. You know, it's where you print out a photo. Let's see here. This is a longer piece of envelope seal. I need something longer here to cover that up, to get that back in there. But yeah, like a photo stamping piece where you print out some clouds on a printer of a photograph of some clouds, and you just stamp right over the top of it with your scenic imagery, and that makes for a very quick scene. All right, so that is nature set number 7. Okay, here's another one. Tons of stamps in this one, but we'll make this one go pretty fast, or we'll try to do it as fast as possible. Don't rush it though. We don't want to cut into anything. Okay. So I'll just go for the straight cuts first. All right. Or the straightest cuts that I can, if I see any. If there's like some avenues that you can kind of see or that are obvious, I would do those ones first. Now, I mean, if you just have one sheet to cut out, that's no big deal. But kind of the economy of movement, you know, is important if you're doing a lot of trimming. So sometimes I get, you know, I don't know, 70 sheets of rubber in at times, and there's any number of stamps on them. No, that's not the sets like this. I don't trim, you know. I have my cling foam sets made by a fellow manufacturer that's really awesome, and those come pre-trimmed, but these unmounted sheets we don't pre-trim. Again, unless someone asks, and in this case, someone asked. But it's always kind of surprised me the number of people that, or the percentage, that really like doing their own trimming, which I think is kind of cool though. Like I've said before, it's kind of like the zen of kind of a tool or media preparation by the artist. You know, I don't know. When you're doing your own things, it kind of creates somewhat of a connection between you and your tools. But hey, if you don't, you know, some of you just want to get right into it, that's totally fine too, and I absolutely understand that. It just kind of comes down to how much you have, you know. If you have like 1,000, I don't know, you know, or hundreds of things to cut trim out, it's like, I just want to get right into it. Get into it as far as stamping goes, that is. I just trimmed right past night music. I need to do a scene around that. Stamp soon, night music. I think there used to be a show that I used to watch called Night Music. I think it used to be called Sunday Nights, though. It was a jazz show with David Sanborn. That's not what I was thinking about when I did that quote, though. I was thinking about, you know, scenes of night, which I do a lot of. Okay, watch out for those descenders right here. You can bend and move your rubber around. You know, rubber's quite malleable, okay? So do what you need to do to get the best cut and also the safest cut that you can, okay? Don't trim into any of your words, okay? Just be really careful. Don't rush it. All right, see these little areas in here? Then you use really right around. See my fingers did like that? My fingers are moving around like that a lot. bending the rubber to the angle that is needed for the cleanest, most efficient cut. All right. Autumn leaves. I need to do something with this stamp pretty soon. I want to do some embossed autumn leaves, kind of overhanging for a foreground. And someone just told me, which I didn't know, is that you can emboss dye-based inks. So when I'm using my pens especially, I really get a nice deep, wet saturation of ink. And that stays wet for a little while, so I think that'll be easy for me to emboss. Alright, going back to the sheet, I see a nice, clean, straight cut there at the base of all those word stamps. These are more word stamps than quote stamps. The other scenic sentiments, 1 through 5, are kind of more quote-based. Doing these quote stamps, these word stamps, gave me a chance to kind of, exercise my lettering and typography. I hesitate to use the word skills, because that would be insulting to graphic designers, but the hardest class I ever took in college was a beginning lettering and typography class, because it was the head of the graphic design department at Long Beach State taught it, and he was pretty much well known to be, pretty tough. If you couldn't hack it, he just assumed kind of, get you out of the, kind of the notion of going into graphic design early on. Now, I wasn't in graphic design, but it was a required class for illustrators. But a lot of sleepless nights working on those assignments, hand lettering, and when it came to typography, 1 millimeter, made a difference. It's like micromillimeters on your spacing between your text, your words, the relationship between kind of the dominant letter in a word, just the spacing with your descenders and ascenders. It was pretty, it was pretty crazy, but I learned so much. So when it came time to doing these scenic sentiment designs, oh my gosh, I really labored through getting every millimeter down correctly. And when I thought I had it down, I'd look at things the next day or the next week, and I'd adjust my spacing and everything like that. Because that graphic design class came back to me. I mean, I'm serious between, when I talk about millimeters. I mean, 1 millimeter, if you didn't have that right, it could mean the difference between, an A and an F. Lettering is no small feature in graphic design. Font choice, leading, tracking, all that stuff. This is pre-digital. They were just kind of getting into digital a little bit. I think they were doing a little bit on the computer, but we were doing lettering by hand. So, you're doing everything with a paintbrush. I used a lot of Frisk cutouts, and I didn't have an airbrush either, which would have really helped getting those letters forms just absolutely perfect. All right, we're almost there. Not too bad. It took quite a while, though, didn't it? But the way I see it, when I'm trimming these stamps out like this, the way I see it is that you have these stamps. They're going to last forever, okay? And if you get the trimming down right now, you're set for every time you use these stamps. If you trim it close enough, and you get all those little bits, like say I see a little tiny bit sticking out right there, and that could possibly stamp out. So what I do is I get all those little kind of details like that. So, you know, when you do that, you'll never have to worry about it again. So I try to get everything kind of trimmed up exactly so that, you know, I mean, it can take you, I don't know, an extra, 1 second to trim something up, but from then on, every time you use it, I mean, if you use it however many times, you'll never have to worry about that again, and it just took you an extra, few seconds just to trim everything up perfectly, okay? I mean, that's what I do on all my personal stamps, too. Stamps from other companies and so on and so forth. That's the way I look at it. I get everything trimmed up. Sometimes I even trim the interiors of designs, If there's something outside and there's like a big open space, sometimes I even trim out that interior area. But anyways, here you have the Scenic Sentiment sheet, number 6 and number 7. Quite a number of designs, and I've been using quite a few of these lately in the recent cards that I've been making. Anyway, so hope you enjoyed the little trimming tips video on the Scenic Sentiment sheets. Thanks so much for watching.